Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. We come to you on behalf of the BIM Heroes Association of Architects, Engineers, and Construction Professionals. And this is the Leadership Series with members of the board of directors of the organization, all of whom are professionals in the AEC industry. And we're delighted to have today Natasha Prinsloo and Zaid Hendey, and glad to have them join us to exchange ideas about participatory leadership. And that's what we will discuss today. So first, tell us a little bit about yourselves. Natasha, where are you and what do you do there?
Hi everyone. I'm from originally from South Africa, but I'm based in the United Kingdom. I am a BIM manager working for a consultancy called Ep.4. And it's just building services basically. Yeah.
Very good. Zaid, how about yourself?
You muted.
You're on mute, Zaid. Can you turn on your mic?
Okay, sorry.
Okay, tell us a
Hi.
little bit about yourself.
Hi all. Yeah, I'm Zaid Hindi. I'm a Syrian architect based in Germany, and I'm passionate about BIM and sustainable design. Yeah, and yeah,
Well, we're
and
glad to
I'm part
have.
of the BIM Heroes of course community,
Mhm.
and I'm excited to be here. Thank you
Well, we're
for
pleased to have you both. Thank you for your time.
you.
We're talking about participatory leadership today, and I'm curious to know how you would define it. What is participatory leadership, and how is it different from top-down leadership with which we're all accustomed? Natasha?
Thank you. So to me, participatory leadership is about inviting people into the process of decision making, not just informing them after a decision has been made. In traditional leadership, the power tends to sit on top. Decisions are made within silos and then passed down. But in participatory setups, leadership becomes more of a facilitative role, and it's about creating the conditions for everyone to contribute meaningfully. Then that doesn't mean that chaos or consensus, for the sake of it, but it's all about a structured inclusion. When done well, it builds, I think, stronger teams, better outcomes, more resilience, because people feel, ownership and not just compliance. So that's
And that
my
is so,
it.
yeah, thank you for that. That is so different than what we're all accustomed to. That top-down model that you referred to is the norm in most organizations, most associations. So this is a very different approach. Zaid, why do you think this is growing in popularity, this whole idea of participatory leadership?
Um, please repeat the question. I couldn't hear
Sure.
it.
Yeah. Why do you think this is a concept that is growing in popularity, gaining in traction in the world of leadership?
Okay, can I reform the question so I
Sure.
could?
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
Do you ask me to why do I think this model is gaining traction?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I think participatory leadership is increasingly relevant because it aligns with the realities of how creative and digital teams now operate, especially in architecture and technology and innovation-driven fields. Decentralization isn't just a buzzword. It reflects a shift in where decisions happen and who holds influence. In remote and cross-cultural environments, top-down control often breaks down where areas participatory models promote agility, resilience, and faster innovation cycle. This environment rewards collaboration over a hierarchy. Remote teams using participatory practices report 21 percentage greater innovation output. Yeah, that's all.
Well, and that's obviously what this fast-moving world requires. We can't be sitting still, or the world is changing around us, especially in the world of technology. So let's talk about the experiences that you may have had with participatory leadership. Natasha, tell us about a participatory setup that either worked well or didn't work at all.
Okay, that's great. So one example that I thought of was we had a BIM coordination project where we had multiple disciplines. So we had MEP as well as architectural and structural, working across different time zones. And instead of weekly meetings where I would update everyone, we set up a live Miro board, and what that does is it stays open every day, all day for the entire week. Anyone can drop in comments, they can add visual notes or roadblocks, and we rotated who facilitated the weekly wrap up. What made it work was clarity. Everyone knew their role, everybody knew which lane they were swimming in and when to speak up. And where I've seen it fail is where people aren't given clear parameters. When everyone decides everything, it actually leads to no one deciding anything.
Mhm.
That's the risk. If they, that's the risk. And if there's no spine to the process, it collapses under its own weight. And
Mm.
participation without structure leads to confusion and leads to no collaboration at all.
Well, that sounds like a very difficult process to manage.
Yes.
Is the outcome worth managing in the time that it takes to do so?
Depends if it's done right, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that, when you use the live board and everybody's adding in their feedback, we know everything's on track. We know everything's things are running. If you're only catching up with somebody once or twice a week, you're only going to find out what the issue is, later on, and all the ripple effects after that. So it's going to be so much more, so much more timely to catch up and, where things went wrong. And, so I think it's better just to have constant live collaboration, if you know what I mean. Because there are tools to use that.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like the value of transparency and real-time communication are really important there,
Important, yes.
right?
Very important.
Zaid, what has been your experience with participatory leadership?
In my experience with BIM Heroes and architectural projects collaborations, participatory enables faster ideation, but it also introduces risks. One major risk is decision paralysis. When too many voices try to collide without clearer facilitation, the project can stall. Another is blurred accountability. Who owns outcomes when rules are fluid? That's why even participatory setups need a clarity around rules and escalation paths.
And the value of those rules and everyone understanding them really is a critical element, because that's what makes it participatory. And the absence of that, unfortunately, that we're all familiar with, is we simply sit around and wait for someone to do something, as Natasha said, and then nothing gets done. So there's a dilemma in all of that. And the flatter an organization is, maybe sometimes it's a slower process to be participatory. I'm curious about your experiences with how you balance that in the world of participatory leadership.
Yeah, I think this is the paradox. Participation must be balanced with velocity. I found success when there is a core structure, something like a steering group that holds the final responsibility, even while inviting broad inputs.
Mm-hmm.
We use a round of feedback, but limit how long decision can remain open. Also, setting clear criteria for when a decision is ripe helps move things forward. Yeah.
And we've talked about rules and everyone knowing their role and staying in their lane. Are these rules agreed to, or are they simply imposed upon the group from the top down?
I'm not sure. Maybe we can do it with the group, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Natasha, what is your experience with this across cultures? Does this kind of approach work in every culture?
I would say it's not. It has to be bespoke, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not a one size fits all. You know, but the principle of participatory leadership, it can be adapted to most environments.
Mm-hmm.
In some cultures, hierarchy is expected, which is unfortunate. So a flat structure may actually feel unsafe or disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you need to build psychologically, you know, safety slow. So in my experience, it starts with micro trust moments. You know, you need to listen without interrupting. You need to invite without penalizing it. You need to be transparent when you change course. I think that's really important. And when people feel seen and respected, regardless of their job title, participation becomes natural. But if you skip the trust, the model won't stick. That's just from my opinion.
Well, very well said. I think there's a lot of business leadership models that also reflect that. It's very difficult to impose or to achieve because of our natural nature to be in charge and be the decision maker. Zaid, what do you think makes this work in practice? How does participatory leadership really achieve its objectives? And please turn on your mic before you respond.
Yeah, in multi, sorry for I always make it silent so I can annoy anyone. Yeah, so I think in multicultural or in multicultural work and work culture, participatory leadership may struggle without trust building mechanism. In regions where hierarchy is deeply ingrained, people may hesitate to speak up even when invited. In BIM Heroes, we noticed this in Arab or Central European teams, unless psychological safety is built explicitly, the model fails.
And then that begins with the leaders. That begins with the leaders modeling that kind of vulnerability, because if the leaders aren't showing transparency, accountability, it's impossible to expect it of others. Talk to us a little bit about how in the world of managing projects, in the very complex and difficult world of construction, architecture, and engineering, these projects are often huge and very complex. So how does this work in practice? How can you create a team of all of the participants in the kinds of projects you work on that really work? How do you allow the participants in this project know what their role is and how they can best achieve it?
Yeah, I think the participatory leadership needs enabling frameworks. So security or holarity provide structure for decentralized input. In creative communities, DAOs, for example, the decentralized autonomous organization, show how distributed governance can be encoded into digital tools. On the tech side, tools like Miro, Slack, or Notion help flatten communication and capture everyone's input when used internationally. Yeah,
And because
cross references agile design sprint collaborative BIM platforms.
and these technologies weren't around 15, 20 years ago. And now that we live in a connected world and the web or the internet allows us to have instantaneous access. I mean, right now we're talking from the United States and Germany and the UK in the same session. So this is a different kind of work culture than a lot of us perhaps have grown up with. So tell us a little bit more if our audience hasn't worked in Miro or Slack. Natasha, you referenced that before. Tell us a little bit more about how these technologies help the business of participatory leadership.
Well, I think I would start with the tools aren't the magic, definitely not, but they do make it easier.
Mhm.
So for me, we use tools like Micro for co-creation, like we touched on before, which is it's live. Notion for Teams Handbook, Slack, for quick async conversation. But it's not about the tech, it's about how you use it. In my opinion, if the tools become a black box or feel like surveillance, it's going to backfire. And it's just you're not going to get anywhere with that. But when you use, surface ideas, give visibility, and keep everyone in the loop, they accelerate trust. Sometimes a sticky note does more than a formal report. So you have the tech. It's just, a lot of the times you still need that human touch, right? Because people do crave that. Even though we're advancing so much in technology, people do require human touch. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and you said it earlier, and I want to repeat what you said about being seen and heard in a safe and secure environment. And that's the leader's responsibility to create that environment, to model it, and then to allow others to join the leader in doing so. So who have you seen doing this kind of leadership well? Do you have examples in your world of participatory leadership that works?
So I can obviously talking from my experience, right? The way I have seen, so there's been amazing work from open source groups and co-ops, where decision making is transparent and values are led. But closer to home, I mean, I'm going to it's BIM Heroes there, right? Is a live example at the moment, because we all know that it's working. It's built by a community for a community. We don't just talk about inclusion, we have a structure for it. There's no closed doors, there's no hidden agendas, which is rare in the industry. And I think it's just the outcomes are so much more rich, when you have this open book, right? And there is no agenda. It's what you see is what you get. And I think that's what people need. They need to know where they stand, and everybody that's part of the BIM Hero community, knows what's there, and the information, and it's trustworthy. We're all together in this, making it work and building it, and yeah, that's.
And to your point, I think the fact that BIM Heroes has created this culture, it either attracts people because of the culture, or people don't join, don't participate because for whatever reason, they're not accepting those values in their own world. So it's really exciting to see a global community with professionals like yourselves that are committed to this idea, because in my humble opinion, I think it really is going to be a difference maker. Zaid,
100%. And sorry, just to interrupt there, it's just because
please.
I think a lot of what, people are still, they're within their silos, right? And people don't like change. And a lot of people don't like to work as part of a team. They don't like to communicate and share ideas. And we need to break those barriers. And I think that's what's pushing people away. That they don't like that. It's uncomfortable for them. You know, we're changing is because everybody, like, nobody wants to share information. Like when you're working with a different company, you're like, oh, it's my intellectual property. And when you're collaborating, it's no more, because, you know, you need to get this project done. And you're working with so many different people and consultancies, and you have to all just work together. And it's still, people's mindsets aren't, you know, they're not there yet, if you know what I mean.
Unfortunately, I do. I know too well what you mean, because
Yeah.
there's too much of that in our world. And it's the rare association of professionals that really see the value of what you've said. And I'm thrilled to be a part of an organization that is so collaborative and respectful of each other and open-minded and ready to learn. Zaid, where have you seen that work best? In what real-world examples have you experienced it?
Yeah, for me, I'm inspired by open source architecture movement and local urban co-design projects in Europe, where community members call it the design of public spaces. Also here in BIM Hero itself, it reflects a participatory spirit. Volunteers themselves led initiatives, and decision making is transparent and the community driven as well.
And just, I'm going to get personal for a moment and ask each of you, how do you lead in a participatory way? What do you do as a leader to enhance and encourage leadership among the groups with whom you work?
For me, I always start with listening deeply before proposing the directions. Then I invite interaction, allowing others to rephase or reshape the vision.
Natasha, how do you put this in action?
So for me, I ask more questions than I give answers. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And even if I have a clear idea, you know, I open it up, because what comes back is almost better than what I would have imagined on my own. You know, and you'll be quite surprised. And just, you know, because some people where I currently work now, I'm new within the company, and they're not used to the way I'm. It was very different leadership within the department, and they, you know, they look at like, okay, I didn't know I had a voice, you know, and you'll be surprised and how it motivates them, you know, because you can slowly see them coming out of themselves, you know. So I think it's very important to ask the questions, get them to answer, you know, because they feel like they're part of the team, not just they're coming to work 8 till 5, or, you know. So I think that's very important.
And when a leader is willing to be open-minded and learn from others, they're also modeling participatory leadership and giving others the opportunity to teach.
Okay.
And I think every one of us has experiences that are worth sharing.
Yeah.
Do you think everybody wants to be involved in leadership? Are there some people who would just simply check out if they don't like to be leading?
Zaid, do you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you, Natasha. Yeah, I think not always, but most people want their voice to count. So participation is not about equal control, but about meaningful inclusion.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Not everybody wants to lead decisions, but everybody wants their perspective respected. I truly believe that, and I think the magic is when you let people choose how they participate, and you just need to honor that. You just need to honor that.
That's right.
And we're all familiar with how coercion is intended to force people to comply. And what we're talking about is an entirely different approach that some people will be very uncomfortable with, just because of their experience, their nature, and their own personalities. So demonstrating the value of it. And I think there's a lot of research that shows cooperative and collaborative working groups perform far better than if they're simply top-down, command and control, you do what I tell you to do. So as we're kind of getting close to the end of our time together, so let me ask each of you to sum up what you believe about participatory leadership and give us your best assessment of why we need to practice it more effectively.
Yeah, Natasha, could you please start?
Not a problem. Not a problem. Well, for me, I think if leadership is about power, participation is about purpose, and you need both to build anything that lasts.
Oh,
That's
that's
my
very
final
well
words.
said. Yeah,
My final
thank you.
words.
Zaid?
Yeah, for me, I think the participatory leadership isn't just a method. It's a mindset that invites shared responsibility and unlocks deeper innovation.
Very, very, very good. Well, I want to thank both of you for bringing your expertise to the table. Frankly, I would allow you to lead me anytime because of the value of how you see leadership and how you define it. And that's one of the hallmarks of the BIM Heroes group is a different approach than the one that we have used traditionally needs to be a part of this new culture that's changing daily, if not hourly. And we have to have a better collaborative approach. And the two of you example and model that extremely well. So thank you very much. So we're going to be looking for the next event a week from today at the same time, in which we're going to explore other elements of leadership, especially from the standpoint of what makes BIM Heroes so unique. So thank you both. Thank you all. And thank you for joining us.
Natasha. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was
Thank you
a really
so
nice
much.
conversation. Thank you.